Hello, friends. Today we are going to talk about the vagus nerve. Now, when I first heard about the vagus nerve, I thought it was like a little nerve, right? Like a nerve in your tooth, or, you know, I had no idea. Actually, the vagus nerve is a complex set of nerves. It should really be called the vagal nervous system in my non medical humble opinion, because it runs from the base of the spine, right? From the brain stem all the way down the spine to basically to the end of the spine. And as it travels down, it branches out. So it literally connects to every system in the body. It's really the super highway of your body, of your nervous system. It talks to every other part of your body. And so the health of the vagus nerve is so critical in so many ways. So we're going to talk about that today. And then at the end, I'm going to give you some fairly easy practices to play around with and see how they work. Also, other things that we'll learn further on in the series, like tapping and neurokinesis and things like that, will also help support the vagus nerve. So I tried to give you some things that were not going to be things that we were going to be doing later on. So when the vagus nerve is operating at its optimal in its optimal way, it's considered to have vagal tone. So when the vagal tone is not present, then really nothing in the body is operating at its best. So it is used. I mean, with my work, I think about the vagus nerve primarily in terms of its connection to the central nervous system, because it's really used to sort of counteract the fight or flight response. So stimulating your vagus nerve benefits your autonomic nervous system, along with, of course, your mental health. It's how you really develop a healthy response to stress, to become more resilient. When it's activated, you're more in that parasympathetic aspect of your nervous system, right? You feel calmer, you feel more compassionate, your thinking is clearer, you can access your higher level executive functioning and speaking ability much more easily. It also helps the immune system and the body's inflammation response. So it helps counteract the beginnings of dis-ease in the body, some of which we've talked about already: chronic dis-ease, right? The high blood pressure, the diabetes, the hypertension, some of the other things that are not coming to mind right now, but all of those critical chronic diseases that are the things that people are showing up in doctors' offices and hospitals for probably 80 to 85% of the time within our medical system. So as I said, when the vagus nerve is healthy, it's in a state of, quote, vagal tone. And when you're in a state of vagal tone, you have a better emotional regulation. You feel more connected to yourself and to the world, and your physical health is better overall. A healthy vagal nerve helps you to live more mindfully in the world, because when it is functioning the way it should, you're not ruminating about the past, we talked about this already, or projecting into the future. You're more in the present moment. You're in a state of mindfulness, right? And everything that's great about mindfulness is the same as having a good vagal tone. You're more resilient, able to manage through life's challenges, traumas, troubles, And you're able over time, when your emotional system and your mental health is more regulated, to develop skills, frankly, that increase the likelihood of you being more successful in life. When we're always in reactivity, when we're getting triggered, when we're in that defensive, sympathetic part of our nervous system, when we can't think clearly because our blood flow is disturbed and being distributed to our, larger muscles so that we can run, we don't have the capacity to develop the thinking skills, the communication skills, the analytical skills, all of the things that we're able to do when we're calm, our creativity. We can't access our creative mind when our cognitive brain is shut down with fear and anxiety and that fight or flight response. So, as we've talked about in earlier lessons, anytime your brain perceives a threat, correctly or incorrectly, but always based on past experience, the vibrational frequency, the emotion that was present when a certain thing may have happened, right? When your body perceives a threat, this thing feels like that thing, this thing smells like that thing, this thing has the same texture, feel, height, color, whatever it might be. It sends signals right to the sympathetic nervous system that triggers that fight or flight response. And the parasympathetic nervous system does the opposite. It calms you. It's activated typically after, if there was real danger or even a thought of danger. Once you realize there is no danger or the danger is past, then the parasympathetic nervous system gets activated. If you've been pulled out of harm's way, or as I said, something that you thought was threatening turned out not to be, and your system recognizes that this potential threat or danger is no longer present, then your systems start to regulate again. And if you have the balance in your system, you'll shift back over into that parasympathetic nervous system. And the vagus nerve is important in all of this. It helps you to stay calm when you're stressed, to recognize whether or not there actually is a danger. You don't get kidnapped, right? You don't get hijacked by that fight or flight sympathetic part of the brain. You still have enough wherewithal to recognize that, okay, that was, I assessed that incorrectly, or, whatever the situation was. So you can come back into that parasympathetic nervous system faster, the better your vagal nerve is toned. And then when you're in the parasympathetic, you're doing all of the things that the body does when it's in that rest and digest mode. I want to just read a quote by a clinical psychologist by the name of Dr. Glenn Doyle. And he put it this way. He says, the vagus nerve is deeply plugged into our heart, our gut, and our voice. Whenever we turn inward to check in with our true feelings, to check in with our intuitive wisdom, or to find our true expressiveness, we literally light up our vagus nerve. Whenever our face reflects what we're really feeling or experiencing, the vagus nerve is at work. We can't hide it. Whenever we plug into the rhythms of ourselves or the world around us, we're lighting up the vagus nerve. When we speak, when we shout or sing, the vagus nerve lights up like a Christmas tree, which is one of the reasons why those activities can be so cathartic and emotionally healing and clearing for so many of us. So that parasympathetic part of the nervous system, as I said, the states of that include the rest and digest. And according to polyvagal theory, which was originated by Dr. Stephen Porges, the ventral vagal branch of the parasympathetic is associated with social engagement. So it allows us to feel, as I mentioned before, more connected, be less guarded, be more open, which also helps when we're connected like that. We're actually toning the vagal system, the vagal nerve as we're doing this. So we know, studies have shown us that the vagus nerve is really important in the gut-brain axis, right? That whole bundle of nerves that runs between the brain stem and the gut, and its role in stress. As it connects the gut and the brain, it sends signals back and forth in both directions. You may have heard that we have not one, not just the cognitive brain or the cortical brain as it's called, but also a gut brain and a heart brain in your body. What this means is that both the heart and the gut have their own independent sets of neurons that take in information, process that information, and then send it up to the cortical brain. The cortical brain is also taking in information and then sending it out to the body. So there's this symbiotic, I guess, I don't know if that's actually the right word. There's messaging that goes in both directions. It's not like everything is coming out of this cortical brain. The vagus nerve sends information from the gut to the brain. And this is where we get the, when you're having a gut feeling, it literally is the nervous system within the gut, within the digestive system, that's picking up information from its environment and sending it to the brain. These signals not only help the mind-body prepare for potential threat, but they help a person recover from stressful and scary situations when the threat is eliminated, as I mentioned. The neurons are cells that are found in the brain and your central nervous system, right? They tell your body how to behave. So just for comparison's sake, there's approximately 100 billion neurons in the human brain and about 500 million neurons in your gut. And they're connected through this vagus nerve. Studies have found that humans with irritable bowel syndrome or Crohn's disease have reduced vagal tone, which means a reduced function in the vagus nerve. Your gut and your brain are also connected through chemicals called neurotransmitters, right? And neurotransmitters produced in the brain are responsible for controlling our feelings and our emotions. Interestingly, many of these neurotransmitters are also produced by your gut cells and the trillions of microbes living there. A large portion of serotonin is produced in the gut, generally when we're asleep, when we're in that rest and digest phase. So if your gut is not healthy or you're not sleeping well, then you're not producing probably enough serotonin to maintain good mental and emotional health and well-being. You see the connections? So fascinating. And then the gut and all of those millions of microbes also control inflammation, and they make many different compounds that affect brain health. So all the time that we're over here, or maybe over here, I don't know, whichever direction, the sympathetic nervous system is, when we're in that highly activated, fearful fight or flight response, the body is not carrying on any of these other functions around nutrition, creating neurochemistry, right? All of the things that are biologically supposed to happen when we're in the parasympathetic, the rest and digest stage. So the more you're in that sympathetic, first of all, the more cortisol And adrenaline is running through your system, very harsh chemistry that's wearing down your cells and the telomeres on the ends of your cells. So again, creating perhaps a foundation for more dis-ease, and certainly aging, as the telomeres, as they get shorter, can't continue to reproduce. So not only are you running that harsh chemistry through your body, but you're not then having enough time in the parasympathetic to run the processes and the chemistry to help the digestion, to help in the creation of the hormones, right? To do the restoration process that our body so badly needs. So I want to shift away from the gut now, and I want to talk about this heart brain. If you've heard my TED talk, I mentioned the heart brain. But again, it's fairly new information from a new discipline called neurocardiology, right? Early findings have shown that the heart has a complex neural network that's extensive enough to be characterized as a separate brain in the heart. In fact, I've read that the brain in the heart was actually created before the cortical brain, and it sent signals as the body was growing inside in utero before this cortical brain was created, or cognitive brain. So the heart's nervous system contains around 40,000 neurons called sensory neurites, and they also communicate with this cognitive brain. The heart brain, as it's commonly called, is an intrinsic cardiac nervous system, an intricate network of ganglia and neurotransmitters and proteins and supportive cells, very similar to the ones in the brain. And because of this, because of all of this combination of ganglia and neurotransmitters and proteins and cells, the brain circuitry enables it to act independently of the cranial brain. The brain in the heart can learn, it can remember, it can sense and feel, and even make decisions. Crazy, right? I thought so when I heard it. And again, this heart brain heart sends messages to the cognitive or cranial brain. The cranial brain sends them back down to the heart brain through the vagus nerve. So again, how important this vagus nerve is. It's such a critical component to overall health and wellness. So I'm going to wrap up this part of the video here. In the handout that I'm sharing with this, there are many different exercises and practices that you can, again, start to play around with. A couple of them are a reset for that ventral vagus nerve. There's some breath work. There's cold water practice, humming, mindfulness, meditation, yoga, chanting. So there are a lot of different ways where you can stimulate your own vagus nerve and increase your own vagal tone. Who knew? Okay, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed this. I'm such a nerd about this stuff. I only hope everybody else finds it as fascinating as I do. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Bye now.